social advantage white over racial groups simply because they are white. Racism is defined as individual and group processes and structures that are implicated in the reproduction of racial inequality. Systemic racism happens when these structures and practices are carried out by groups with power, such as government, business, or school. Racism differs from bias, which is a conscious or unconscious prejudice against an individual or group based on their identity. I like to use bias too because not that we should avoid the terms like racism because they exist. I was just in Hunters like a couple weeks ago, and this dude with a swastika tattooed on his chest and white power on his shoulder. So it's there, it's real. There was a guy bumming in Caldwell just the other day at the grocery shop, had to his chest neo-Nazis. So these things exist and really close to us. I mean, real close. And so we need to be aware of them and know how to protect ourselves because honestly, I'm like scary stuff. A skinhead guy walking around the terms and Colorado actually literally does scare me. So it's not, like something you can find. It's like it's scary. And this is the society that we live in, and these are the people that have papers and stuff. It's not like something that the people like to act like it is not something that's present in our communities and stuff, but it totally is. And when we don't turn back to it and we're in it and everything, 'cause some people don't have to live and exist in that sense of fear. And especially now that I feel more vulnerable, bigger than most, um, I do feel more, like triggered by seeing people with, like racial tattoos and stuff, and feeling like, who am I safe? Am I safe? Because, like if he decided to start something with me, I don't know what I'd do. Um, I may be, like probably with these shoes a good 10, but never been in a fight in my whole life. My brother. So, like, this is what I do. And, like those sort of realities that we have to accept and deal with are scary. So, all right, here is a video. I used to teach a section on white privilege when I was at Eastern before, and people would get really, really heated about it. And so I started using videos of white people talking about it instead of me talking about it because some people felt like I was telling them different things. And that's not the goal here. The goal is understanding. And so if someone who is the same color as you, and then also me, talk about it in conjunction, then it can be a little bit easier to handle. And so it'll just kind of go weird so that, like, no one feels like they're being called out. Did you hear something? Yeah. Okay. So I know you and I have had some long discussions about that. Mm-hmm. And not being raised here, being raised in predominantly white area, and understand, right? Because there's certain technologies that are thrown around that white people get defensive. And through our discussions, these things came up. And I know that I personally heard that it's real. It's real. And it's hard to accept, it's hard to see, it's hard to welcome. But for me, from my experience, is that one thing to be it realize see the truth behind it, stop participating. And I think that it's important to understand when you agree with them. It's important to understand. To take a good look at it. Okay. So hopefully this works, but if it doesn't, we'll just try it on.
Can you do the go to YouTube up there?
Oh, just like,
Maybe?
you can give them the talk if you want, we won't get it. Oh. Video is it going now? So, now that I'm using a video? So, yeah. Okay, so this is a really nice, easy way to understand white supremacy that I absolutely love. And in a way that makes sense for people. And so white supremacy is kind of like high fructose corn syrup. Very few people would purchase a bottle of it for themselves, but it's cheap, palatable, effective, unhealthy, and is an ingredient in just about everything. To me, the experience of opening my eyes to white supremacy was like realizing that high fructose corn syrup was a component in everything I picked up off the shelf at the supermarket, even in things you wouldn't expect. Just a constant refrain of seriously, is this cute? If you don't really care and aren't actively looking for it, you likely won't find it. You'll just consume it thoughtlessly. Those who are adversely affected, though, will be rigorously against because failure to do so is harmful. They will look harder and find more. So, as someone who has like dietary restrictions and things and reads labels like all the time, and like one of my stepsons is allergic to red 40, and so like it's something that you have to look for in different foods and stuff. And the other one is highly lactose intolerant. So if he has just a little bit of milk, then he has poo floating everywhere. TMI, I know. But it's just a reality, right? And well, I check labels all the time. I'm constantly looking to make sure, like, oh, is this going to have a problem with him? Is this going to have a problem with him? I gotta make sure. And then is it okay for me? And those sort of things. So I check things all the time. And like with this, right? It's in almost everything. It's like all over the place. And you don't think about it if you don't need to, right? You're just like, I don't need dietary restrictions. I can eat this bag of chips. It's no big deal. I can drink this soda. It's no big deal. It doesn't matter. But if you have those restrictions and you have to look at the label and say, oh, can't have this particular kind of soda because it will, make him sick. Or he can't have this candy bar even though he really, really wants it because it will get him sick. Or, like those bag of chips and whatever. So when you're checking for those things and you're looking for them, you see that more and more. And then it's like a thing that's in the back of your head. But if you don't have to train yourself to it, you don't pay attention. It's not something it's not something you think about. It's just like, yeah, it's another day. It's Tuesday. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Lose track of days sometimes. So, but this is how white supremacy operates in a lot of people's lives. Like, if no one brings it to my attention, it isn't behind my head. I walk around, I go to the store, I do the things, and it's not a thing that I'm aware of or think about or pay attention to. But as someone who has, like barriers and different things, one to be aware. Just like when I went to the store and there was the Nazi guy, to be aware. I have to be like guard on the cat, which isn't fun. It's not a cool part of existing in society when I'm here, you know. Because I'm like, I can go to the store. No one's gonna hurt me. No one's gonna bother me necessarily. I mean, most likely. I don't walk at night though, down in Lower Head, so that's okay. But you know, it's not something that I have to worry about. But when I leave the res, when I'm in Colville or Spokane or something, or Hunters, I have to be aware. I have to like be vigilant about what's things. And it sucks. But other people with different skin color and who don't wear things like that can go out to those places and they don't have to be aware. Right? You don't have to make the choice or you don't have to, like you can go to the store and you're not worried about your safety. You can go to Walmart and you're not worried about someone saying something or doing something or being like scary and aggressive and weird, whatever. You can just go there and it's fine. It's no big deal. And that's what privilege looks like. That's what privilege looks like. Is being able to operate in society without thinking about the color of your skin. It's nice. But once you're aware, you're like actively looking, that's when you start to break down barriers. That's when you start to be more, like conscious of what other people experience in day-to-day life. When you're walking into the store and you see the guy and you're like, and you see, like your friend in the store, you're like, hey, like that you work with, who's from here, who's me, then you can be like, hey, and then you're more aware, I think that guy was a Nazi or whatever. And that was probably intimidating or weird for this person. And now you're thinking about it and you're aware of it and you're activated and you're like, I wonder how often stuff like this happens regularly. And that's when you start to see the differences in society and how people are treated. And you can start understanding, like the dynamics that exist for people of color. And then you can start making changes and start, like living in these things and working towards changing them. Not just, like, well, I'm a my color. Like, hey, I care about these people in my community. I care about my neighbor. I care about, whomever. And I don't like that they have to exist in fear and distrust and all these different things because of people like this. Because these sort of things exist in society. Okay, so cultural competence. Now this is where we understand what's going on and we start to make these changes. But this is the first part, and this is where you're just like, how do you know? So, culture, memory, asserts that reflection is predicated upon the understanding that knowledge is produced, not affected, and that it rests upon particular logical foundation, all of which allow the context of knowledge creation to be revealed. Culture implies the integrated pattern of human behavior that include communication, customs, beliefs, values, and institutions of a racial, ethnic, religious, or community. Social culture may include cooking, while deeper include group decision-making processes, conception of self, or patterns of emotion. So if you're looking at cultural things to understand what culture means to you and to the people around you. So you might create culture and see, like these different groups of identities that are on the surface. And then you might like someone who's lived in the community long understand the lower level, right? The different conceptions, understand the feeling and different things like that. Because you've been here long, like I understand that I was growing up and it's difficult for this community, and like not a lot of people have started to embark on that particular journey. So when we're looking at competence, the word competence refers to absoluteness, certainty and clarity, evoking ideas of mastery, proficiency, and efficacy. Competence refers to the perception that culturally competent and fewer are indeed attainable if appropriate steps are followed, are with knowledge acquired and developed. Through the training, we are going to cultural competence not as a quantifiable outcome, but instead a continuum process with a particular attention to understanding, integrating, and applying practices that are relational, collaborative, and culturally responsive as possible. So we're looking at this as a continuum, and you're gonna have a starting point, which is like the worst, kind of like negative almost on the other side of zero, and then you're gonna have the end where there is no end really. You just keep learning and changing and adapting. Okay, so cultural destructiveness. This is the first side of the continuum. This is the negative side. So the continuum starts at cultural destructiveness. This is typified by actions, policies, and practices that are destructive to cultures and the people who make meaning with them. Cultural genocide, like residential indigenous population, dehumanizing or subhumanizing or conducting experiments through the health and safety of all groups and examples of efforts to disenfranchise, control, exploit, or systematically destroy those that perceive as negative, right? Super duper negative. This is like really, really bad stuff. You don't want to be the person who's on this end of stuff. Cultural incapacity. So the next stage on the spectrum is cultural incapacity, which is defined not by intentional cultural dysfunction, but by a lack of capability to respond to cultural diversity. Individuals or agencies subscribe to the discourse that the dominant cultural group is superior, while adopting a paternalistic stance to inferior groupings or individuals. Oppression and discrimination are endemic at this stage of the continuum, with practitioners holding lower expectations of clients with diverse cultural identities. See, so this is the white savior complex thing that I was talking about, where you're like, I'm up here and I know everything, and these poor Indians are down here and they need my help, they need my guidance because they don't understand. You don't want to be this person. All right, cultural blindness. Cultural blindness is the next stage, and it sees practitioners and agencies subscribe to the belief that no difference exists between people. Arguments of universality and generalizability are applied to the helping approaches typically used by the dominant culture, with the assumption that everyone can be served with equal effectiveness. No such persists along with the continued push for assimilation. So, despite the fact that this is like all colors are beautiful and everyone's the same, at the same time, there is no openness to the idea that like cultural difference does exist. We all have different practices and beliefs that should be respected. It's just like, oh, we can use the same basis. This isn't helpful for Native communities who have beautiful, diverse, rich, separate, unique cultures. And for like societies outside of here, where there are minorities in every which color there is in the entire universe, and it's not helping them either because they're not all the same. They have different needs. And if you don't take these into consideration, then you are assuming that yours is superior and that you need to apply that to everyone. This is like the golden rule. Who knows golden rule, right?
Others as you have done.
Yeah, right? Say it aloud.
Do unto others as you would have done unto you.
That's the assumption that everyone needs to be treated the same as I do. Does anyone know the platinum? No? No platinum here? No? do unto others as they would like, so it's about them. It's not about you because they have different expectations and needs. So, like, I don't want to be treated like the other people. Like, it's scary. I want to be treated how I want to be treated. So I have boundaries, and you should respect those boundaries. Don't treat me how you want to be treated because I don't know how you want to be treated. Maybe you have a dysfunctional, family and household and things, and you are treated really, really weird compared to me. I don't. I want to be treated how I want to be treated. I want you to respect my boundaries and respect my culture and my beliefs, and treat me how I want to be treated. Look it up. It's useful. Okay. This. So the first thing takes place when individuals or agencies reach the pre-competence stage. Individuals or agencies develop an awareness of inadequate service delivery. They start to implement change by hiring culturally diverse practitioners. They conduct culture or they conduct needs assessments and recruit culturally diverse representatives to their governance structure. This is the first part. This is the first stage where people start to realize that there is a need that is not being met, and they start making efforts to do that. It's not like the full thing where they're like, oh yeah, we completely understand that we are underserving the needs of the community that we're in. This is kind of like, I feel like there might be some gaps, and I'm going to try to sort of band-aid at it. We need to do more, but this is the first stage. It's useful. It is a good starting point. Now, at the stage of cultural competence, we see acceptance and respect for differences in practitioners and agencies attending to continued self-assessment. This is big, continued self-assessment. You're continually looking at yourself and saying, like, how can I change? How can I do better? Intra cultural dynamics, expansion of cultural appropriate resources, and adapted service delivery models. Tokenistic hiring has ceased, and practitioners demonstrate an ability to relate to, collaborate with, and respond to a culturally diverse world while ensuring culturally responsive policies and regulations are translated into practice. So not only are you constantly working on yourself, but you're working on the relationships that you have with other people of that race in your group, right? So you are working on those dynamics constantly and trying to make sure that you improve continually. All right, cultural proficiency. Cultural proficiency is a transition towards holding culture in high esteem, whereby practitioners and agencies actively contribute to the culturally competent knowledge base, construct knowledge in relation to interventions and treatments, and disseminate those findings for others to utilize. Key characteristics include hiring specialists in culturally competent practice and strategic advocacy for systemic and societal change with respect to diversity. So this is about more than yourself. But more than your agency, you are working on societal changes at a major level. You want things to change. You don't like seeing them the way that they were, and you're like actively doing stuff, not just at this basic level, but higher as well. And see, like cultural competency training, like in Oregon, it's a requirement. Like everybody has to go through it. It's a law. In Washington, it's not yet, but it will soon be. So trainings like this are going to start becoming everywhere. And this is a beautiful, wonderful thing because a lot of places have a lot of issues and like racial issues and inequalities and different things like that. And so this is a really good step in that direction. So cultural competence. Cultural competence is the ability to transform knowledge and cultural awareness into help and afford social interventions that support and sustain healthy client systems functioning within the appropriate. Now, this is all from an article that I would be happy to share if people are interested. I have the citations in here and everything so that you can relate back to them and stuff, but it's really, really useful to understand, like this continuum in greater detail. If you have any questions or concerns, if you're just like, oh, I wasn't quite sure about this or anything, it's totally useful. There are resources available, there are citations though in the article that you can use to do further reading and stuff, and that's what helps you. But it's a continuum. And the end of that continuum means that you never stop to understand and change. It means, you know, like, that you're not gonna rest and say like, hey, okay, there's some stuff and it's great, and now I have a really good working relationship with this Native community that I'm working in. But you're like, hey, I don't like to see that this community is experiencing these inequalities, and I want to work on changing them. Not only do I want to work on this for myself, but because I care about the people that I'm working with. That's the big part here. So why does it matter? In order to understand the best of the community contract, you ask you to understand the community and your. So this is part of that work. You're digging into yourself and you're saying like, do I hold any of these biases? Do I have any of these like racial beliefs and stuff? How do I work to overcome it? Because if I'm going to work in this community, I need to overcome it. That's the first thing, is like understanding where you are and where you need to be. And as a Native person, it's about also understanding the people that are working with you and saying like, hey, these people are here for a reason and they want to help this community as well, and understanding like where they are and where they need to be and helping them along that journey too. And then understanding where you are in your journey as a Native person, because we all exist with biases and different things. We don't have the ability to have, you know, like racism requires power, and Native peoples don't have the power to exert racism on other races in the same way. So we have, you know, discrimination and all those things, which are still really ugly and terrible, but we cannot have policies and procedures that hurt white people in the same way that we can be hurt, right? So this is kind of, you know, like where these differences lie and stuff, but it still exists. We have bias, we have the ability to discriminate, and understanding those things within ourselves helps us build communication and understanding with the people that we're working with. Because it's not about us, it's about serving the community. It's about the people out there. This is about them. It's not about me and you know, like Sophie or whoever. I don't care anymore. So, but it's about understanding those things. Native communities use a great deal of time and resilience, so we have to understand that these factors impact not only the physical, but you cannot hope to do them justice. So without understanding how all these things are connected, you're not serving the whole person. You're not making any real changes. You're just touching like one part of the whole. And so you need to understand the whole big picture before you can really like actually change anything. So Native communities exist today despite great deal of effort to eradicate them. They stand as testament to great strength and fortitude. We all need to see the strength, not just the deficits. So the people that are struggling that we see day to day, you know, that we see outside of these walls, we have to understand that they're here because of the strength of their parents and their grandparents and the generations that came before them. And despite the fact that they're struggling, they have strength. They have overcome a lot to be here today, and they are continuing to overcome things despite the struggle that we see on their faces every day too. Bodies and all those things. Um, and then you must also understand biases that consciously and unconsciously influence you as an to this community, fake privileges, and you may not even and until you do, you have to teach that community. So understanding where you are and where you need to be in the spectrum, and you know, like any of the other parts of the training as well. Just kind of like understanding like, hey, I didn't realize I had privilege, and that's the first step, is understanding that you do. Or, you know, like coming in as a Native person and being like, hey, I didn't know that they didn't know. Because that's the thing that really drove me crazy when I did my first race and culture studies class, a young teenage undergrad person, was that white privilege exists, right? And it's something that, you know, like benefits a certain group of people, but they're not even aware of it all the time. And until they're aware of it, they can't change it. And so, like, me being angry about it doesn't do anything because they're not. And until they go through those steps to become aware, like, I can't hold them responsible. So, okay. So, here are some resources, like Roosevelt Community Health Center, Community Health, that are, that include care management support, tactics, like, expectation, patient collaboration between the care providers, offer referral and connection to other community resources, resources that may be helpful on your journey of well-being. So here are some contact, things for Ben and Joanna, in case, like, you would like to reach out to someone, or someone who needs help in these areas, and so, that's what it is.
Just real quick, anybody have any questions or comments they want to share with Mike before she leaves? If not, I don't, is your contact info, do you have a slide with that?
Nope.
Okay, we'll put some contact info out in case you'd like to reach Mike for some of the readings she touched on or further information as well. With that, I think that's the end of our training. I think we're about our business now. Got done a few minutes earlier. Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much.